name is Dennis Sproul. If you've been involved in an accident, call me and I'll fight for you. I'm not an actor or a celebrity spokesperson. I'm a real trial lawyer, and I'll appear before real judges and real juries on behalf of people with serious injuries. So when I say I'll fight for you, I mean it, and I'll back it up. If you've been hurt in an automobile or 18-wheeler accident, contact me toll free at 866-529-2444, and I'll fight for your rights.
Think about this, Jeff, man. This is the same culture that allowed, how many was it, 120 million blacks to be kidnapped from the west coast of Africa and brought all the way over to this new world. Right. And we still here 400, 500, 6 years later, no help from our brothers in that. This is the same culture. Like what we still have the same disunity.
Or in LA.
Okay. All right. So here, bro, why is that bad if it benefits them?
Because they came together to.
Why is that bad if it benefits them?
This is what
they're doing it because it benefits them.
Because it says African Americans, it specifically mentions us because we were getting resource streams after the civil rights movements and the money was going to us. They decided to not be white no more.
Okay, great. That benefits them. You don't get what I'm trying to say. Why are we mad at them for doing what benefits them?
Because that was a move against us. They were like, hey, these black people getting money.
But why are you mad at them for doing what benefits them?
I'm not mad at them for that, but we should do the same thing and on some op shit.
There we go.
So take
the answer, brother. And you know what that means? That's what I've been saying this whole time. Unity. Don't worry about what they're doing. You focus on unifying yourself. See, all this complaining about what the next man is doing that benefits him. That's not taking us any steps further. But she's not going to have any access to that 800 million. Now she probably was getting $1 million a month from her husband. I can't see how he didn't have $1 million. Here's a black card, baby. Go do what you do. But so now she's in a situation where, damn, I'm about to lose everything because I had a miscalculation. And that's where the old saying go, pigs get fat and hogs get slaughtered. That's old Southern saying. So she tried to be a hog and now she's about to get slaughtered. You see what I'm saying, bro? So, that's unfortunate, but I don't feel sorry for Dr. Dre. I feel sorry for the guy that's making $15,000 working at Sam's Club or Walmart, who has 2 kids by a woman who has 3 other kids, and he the only one paying child support, and his child support goes to paying all these other kids. That's the one I feel sorry for. Well, I've been practicing law going on 21 years now, licensed in Texas, Louisiana, Illinois, and New York. I'm also licensed to practice in several federal courts and the United States Supreme Court, along with the Fifth Circuit, U.S. Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. I started off at Grambling State University. I went to Southern University for law school, graduated in 2000, took the bar July 2000, scored a perfect score. And then when I went on to Tulane University Law Center, where I got an LLM in environmental and energy related law. My love has always been tort law, environmental law. I started off wanting to be a biologist. I wanted to be a veterinarian. Then I kind of said, I don't know about that. After they had me dissecting rats. So I'm like, I think I'll stick to the lawyer stuff. But either way, I enjoy what I do. I practice personal injury law in Texas, mostly Texas and Louisiana. And recently, since 2017, I've been heavily involved in environmental tort litigation here in Houston.
Dramatization.
After a car wreck, you may have to fight with a highly trained insurance company rep whose job is to knock your damage claim down and out. It's a bad idea to enter the ring alone against a trained boxer, and it could be a bad idea to fight against a big insurance company by yourself. When the bell rings, attorney Dennis Sperling will be there to fight for your rights. If you've been seriously injured in a car wreck, call me, attorney Dennis Sperling, at 866-529-2444. That's 866-529-2444. Hey, what's up, everybody? If you appreciate the format and you appreciate what we're doing here, then make sure you contribute to the Cash App, make sure you contribute to the PayPal, make sure you donate to the Super Chat. It's only you and your contributions that keep this thing going. Thanks.
And we got a lot of stuff going on politically. And the question that I presented today for the brothers here is, this is my statement, just because Trump has been voted out doesn't mean that the show is over. 70 million fervent followers voted for him in 2020, despite knowing all of his shortcomings. Trump is a symptom. He is a reflection of how nearly 1/2 of Americans feel. How does this affect Black men? Let's talk about it. And as the opening statement, it was 2021 and beyond, 70 million Trump voters aren't going anywhere. Look, unless you've been living under a rock, you know that 5 people have been shot and killed in Washington, D.C. As of now, related to the protest outside the Capitol building. One of them is this gentleman, Benjamin Phillips. He basically runs a Trump website, pro-Trump website called Trumparoo, where patriots can mobilize against the corrupt, communist, Marxist, scummy Democrats. Here's another one. We just learned avid Trump supporter Kevin Greeson, who regularly posted online about getting his guns and taking the country back, was one of the 4 people who died in the siege. It was 5 people who died in the siege of the Capitol. Post from Greeson wishing bad things to happen to Nancy Pelosi and identifying with the Proud Boys were found as well. So here's what I'm saying, fellas. These guys, these people are not going anywhere. Because see, all that's going to happen is once these white folks, nature's going to take its course, and 50, 100 years from now, this is going to be predominantly probably a Latino country. You see what I'm saying? You're going to still be mad? Because they know what
a bad thing. I mean, what are they? It's just another group of white folks.
They're going to do what benefits them. What are you going to do to benefit you? I can't be mad at Ariel or other Hispanics for doing what benefits them, bro. If Slim told me this a long time ago, man, when I was a youngster, man, he's a hustler. Anybody who reads my book, he said, man, you never get mad at another man about his own stuff. I can't get mad at the Hispanic man for doing what's in his own benefit. Hey, I can't get mad at the white man for doing what's in his own benefit. You see what I'm saying? If I'm weak enough that what he does F's me over, that's my own damn fault.
I mean, it was on the sneak. This happened before I was born, bro. This was your generation, 1980s, the early 80s. It was.
Man, how old are you, bro? How old are you?
36, bro.
You 36. I'm 46. We the same age, bro.
I'm 48.
We the same age, Megatron. You a grown man. You not a baby. You a grown man. We the same age. You understand what I'm saying? We're viable and living at the same age right now. It's just as much your responsibility as mine, brother. What advice do you have for Black men who are, being shamed and people harassing them and stuff about, the wife that they choose, women they want to date? What's your advice to these brothers, man?
I mean, focus on your purpose. They need to keep their head down like you did and focus on their purpose, whatever that may be. I would say also try and get yourself into a situation where, you're free. You have a job that you can work online. So you can optimize your time doing other things or start another business. Mm-hmm. I mean, that should be your focus. The haters are always going to be there. They're not going to disappear. All right. And you just got to keep focused on your purpose and do you. I mean, we used to have that back in the day, right? Before, focus on yourself is just do you, and everything else should, iron itself out.
They didn't do. We won't pick sides. What we won't do is get ourselves involved in these sort of political skirmishes that have been going on between the two factions in this country for hundreds of years. What we need to do is take this opportunity to build our own infrastructure, deal with our own internal issues, and not get baited into Republican and Democratic talking points or conservative or liberal talking points. It really doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, they're just trying to figure out who's going to be in control of these resources that the dominant society has taken from the rest of the world. It has nothing to do with us. And so when I see black folks picking sides, yeah, it's great. I don't care if you voted for Trump. I don't care if you voted for Biden. It doesn't matter to me, because at the end of the day, you're still a black person, especially you as black men. You as a black man, you need to focus on what you need to do. Make yourself a better person. Figure out what it is you need to enhance your position in this world right now. That's what you need to do. You don't need to get caught up into what Trump is doing. Oh my God, I can't believe that he needs none of your business. Nothing. Because as soon as they finish with them, they're gonna go right back to you.
I'm not a lawyer, but my daddy is. Yeah. If you've been hurt in a car accident, call my daddy. No need to scream and yell like a little kid. Yeah. My daddy will fight for your rights. Yeah, fight for your rights. If you've been involved in a car accident, call my daddy or attorney Dennis Sperling.
Hello, I'm attorney Dennis Sperling. If you've been injured in a car wreck, call me at 713-229-0770.
Call my daddy.
Dennis was called to participate on a panel to speak to that. And when Dennis' time came up, he said, no, I disagree with Lonnie Love. This is a very simple issue. She is too big to get the kind of men that she wants. It's that simple.
Real simple. And anybody, I mean, is anybody willing to tell the emperor that he has no clothes on at this point? Like, who's going to stand up and just say, no, it's because you weigh like 350 pounds. That's why you can't get the men that you want. That's why you can't get these top-notch men that you want. You know, and nobody's willing to, say that, man. And that's just unfortunate. But you know what? Part of being an adult is not being able to get everything you want.
That's true. That's true.
And unfortunately, a lot of these sisters, man, they feel like they're settling for a brother that works at the local Exxon plant that makes $120,000 a year. They think they're settling for a police officer up in New York that makes $180,000 a year. They think they're settling for a brother who's a school teacher or administrator making $80,000 a year. In their mind, they all deserve a 50 Cent. They all deserve a Barack Obama. They all deserve you name it, a Future. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So,
man, and you also brought up Trump. So I'm going to ask the question, the elephant in the room is, why is it that the recent polls are indicating that 25% of black men are set to vote for Donald Trump? He's a racist. He doesn't like anybody. He's mean. He's foggity. He lies. He got a bunch of side women. He's a bad man, according to some of the cable news outlets. Why is it that black men are voting for Donald Trump or set to vote for Donald Trump, according to the latest polls or some of the polls, to the tune of 25%? Can you please explain that phenomenon? Whereas, by contrast, black women are still on the Democratic side and voting for them in the upper 90s. Can you, by your analysis, can you explain that to the audience?
Well, I'm thinking that black men are growing more and more frustrated with these left politicians, and they came out in 7% in 2016 for Donald Trump, and the number has increased because when they look at the cities that are run by Democrats, a lot of these black men are not seeing any sort of progress that benefits them. So they look at these Democrats and they're saying, I'm not getting what I need, especially working class, everyday black men out here. They're not seeing any sort of tangibles being offered to them by the Democratic Party. So a lot of them left us. And one of the things that led to a lot of them leaving in 2016 was the fact that we had all of these murders of black men, like Eric Garner, like Michael Brown, Trayvon Martin, and your Barack Obama's Department of Justice did nothing in any of these cases. So these black men were sitting there hoping that the black president would provide them with justice, but the black president decided to blow off black men. And when he blew off black men, those black men decided to go to the other side. And now more and more of these black men are seeing some of these indirect benefits from a Trump presidency, because Trump's policies that deal with immigration actually lead to the indirect hiring of black men on jobs. And these black men are seeing that they can get employment, they can get economic footsteps that they couldn't get as related to the Obama presidency. And they're also seeing that the Trump administration has made a few little inroads here and there as related to trying to get justice for black men in some cases. Now, I'm not saying all cases, but we've seen in the case of the cases like George Floyd, we saw some action, I think, as related to that case. Whereas Barack Obama did nothing, his attorney general in the case of George Zimmerman practically ignored black people. And when he ignored black people and he did nothing about George Zimmerman, he basically created Donald Trump. And that's something people don't understand about Barack Obama. If it wasn't for his inaction on Trayvon Martin and George Zimmerman, Donald Trump wouldn't be in the White House today.
Hey, what's up, everybody? If you appreciate the format and you appreciate what we're doing here, then make sure you contribute to the Cash App, make sure you contribute to the PayPal, make sure you donate to the Super Chat. It's only you and your contributions that keep this thing going. Thanks.
I will scream and I will holler. Then I'll scream and holler some more, saying absolutely nothing.
You have a choice in legal representation. And in making that choice, do you want an attorney with a made-for-TV nickname to represent you in your serious car wreck claim?
I will growl, kick, and scream.
My name is Dennis Sperling. If you've been involved in a motor vehicle accident, contact me toll-free at 866-529-2444. The choice is yours. Hey, what's up, you guys? This is Dennis Sperling, and I'm back again, and we're going to continue the second part of Black American military men, Vietnam War heroes, right? Now, here's the thing. This is why this is important. Well, first of all, welcome, everybody, and I just want to welcome Devin Lockett. He's a brand new member of the moderator squad, the wrench mob, as they call them. But welcome, Devin. Devin's been hanging out with us for a minute now, and I want to make sure I acknowledge him. Thank you for your participation. You got the wrench now, so please keep the chat room free. We try to keep it respectful here. What I try to do on all my social media outlets is try to create a place, a forum where Black men can speak openly and honestly in a respectful manner to show the world who we are and who we really are. And that is what I always tell you guys. We are loving, caring, upstanding, hardworking, well-meaning men, some of the best men in the world. And the best way we do that is show how we respect each other. But nevertheless, I want to talk to you guys about something, again, it's very important. Black American military men, veteran war heroes. Why is this important?
it's important because we have a deficit of masculinity in the Black community, specifically our brothers. Many of them have not been raised by strong Black men. They've fallen short only because they have not been exposed to strong Black men. I tell people all the time, I think one of the most key components to masculinity is that warrior spirit. Name a great man of the past who wasn't in some manner a warrior. I challenge you to do so. It's very difficult to find. No matter what great men we've seen in the past, whoever has come about, they always have had warriors. The greatest men of all races, Genghis Khan, Napoleon, Alexander the Great, Shaka Zulu, Hannibal, all these great men, George Washington, the founder of this country, all of these men were fighting men. They were all warriors, and we look up to them. And so the thing that we have to do as Black men is we have to begin to rekindle that warrior spirit in us. Now, it's great to talk about those ancient heroes and those African heroes. And I've actually spoke about the great African kings. I've spoke about the great African warriors like King Shaka. I spoke about General Hannibal. But we are not directly connected with those men. Not that they're not part of our African heritage, but what I'm saying is we're not directly connected with them like you are a Vietnam vet. I bet in your family or in your neighborhood, there's a veteran of the Vietnam War. There's a fighting man, a Black man who was in the Vietnam War. I bet you can find one. And so because there's that direct connection to you, and you can reach out and touch that man. In other words, it could be your father. It could be your uncle. If you're younger, it could be your grandfather. It could be your older brother, perhaps, depending on your age. My whole point is these Black men, these Black American men fought valiantly. These are some of the hardest fighting men. Those of you guys who know anything about the Vietnam War, it was one of the hardest fought wars that America has ever been in. It lasted a long time. It was jungle warfare. It was guerrilla warfare. It wasn't like you could just bomb the place up like they did the Germans. Those Vietnamese were not coming and standing out in front of you, lined up one row after another for you to just run into them with a charge. This wasn't happening. You're talking about guerrilla warfare for nearly 7 years. The French tried, the Russians tried, I believe the Chinese tried, and all of them failed to conquer Indochina, i.e. that Vietnam Peninsula. So this is what we're dealing with. And so here come the Americans. After the Bay of Tonka incident, our troops were sent over there. We were told it was to do what? Combat communism spread around the world. That's what they were told. These men, having coming out of Korea, many of them, having seen how their fathers fought in World War II, recognized that Vietnam was their time. Now, unfortunately, when these men, and this is Black, white, Hispanic, whoever, when these men came back from their war, when they came back from the Vietnam War, they were spit upon. They were called baby killers. They were called animals. They were called savages. Here's another thing. Many of those Black men went to Vietnam and came back addicted to marijuana, opium. This is what they had to deal with. So when they came back to dire straits. They didn't come back to the celebrations that the World War II veterans came back to. They came back to being spit upon in the airport. Men with their camouflage on, fresh back from the war, suffering from injuries, suffering from all sorts of post-traumatic stress sort of associated issues. And this is what they came back to. So I think it is incumbent upon us, especially as Black Americans, for us to begin to remember the sacrifice that our Black American heroes made. And that's why, in part, I'm doing this presentation. Now, before we get started, I want to give a big shout out to Broken Blade. Thank you so much. I don't expect a lot of people to be here tonight. Why? Because this is not something that interests everybody. Normally at this time, we'd have 100, 200 people here, sometimes at minimum 50 or 60, but we don't have a lot of people here. Why? Because this is not something that interests everybody. But it's unfortunate because these are the type of subjects, just like that African history lecture that I gave for several weeks, about a month or two ago. These are important for masculine development. So what I want you guys to do for me, so we can get the algorithm up, hit the number 1 button. Go ahead and take the time to hit the number 1 button, tag people, share this, whether you're on Facebook, whether you're on YouTube, make sure you tag anybody you know to come in. Hit the number 1 button, you guys. Hit the number 1 button. Hit it for yourself. Hit it for the legacy of these fighting black men, and hit it for every Vietnam veteran that fought and died in the Vietnam War, especially our black brothers. They were spit upon when they came back here. They were called baby killers and despised. They couldn't wear their uniforms in public without being ridiculed by people who didn't go to the war. This is what our Vietnam vets had to deal with. Now contrast that with what they did. They fought a war that their government told them to fight. They did what they were supposed to do. They fulfilled their duty. And what did they get in response to that? They were spit upon. Can you imagine? You can't even disrespect a military man, or you're not supposed to. Can you imagine in 2021, you got returning troops coming through the airport and somebody spit on them? The crowd would turn against you. And imagine what these brothers expected. Imagine how they felt after coming home after fighting in the bush for a year. And I believe a tour of duty back then was a year or darn near a year. And so you wonder why sometimes they went over there and they came right back. Why did they come back? When they went, they re-enlisted. Why? Because the world that they came back to, they couldn't adjust to it. It was hostile. They did better in the jungles of Vietnam with an honest enemy that honestly wanted to kill them, as opposed to going back home to a United States where the citizens that they were fighting for, the citizens whose freedom they were fighting for, turned on them and called them baby killers. Can you imagine how they had to feel to want to go back into the military? And Devin is saying the tour of duty lasted 18 months. 18 months of war fighting in the jungle against often, and this is close quarter combat. Imagine that. 18 months. And you got guys who did multiple tours of duty. Think about that. This is what these brothers went through. And so, I commend them. And all you fighting men, all you active military, former military, you are definitely in a very special place, especially as black men, because as I've shown you guys on this page, oftentimes it's when our fighting men come back from overseas, things change socially in the United States. What does that mean? You fight overseas, you fight and you die and you kill for this country. You develop, on top of that, you go places oftentimes and you're treated with a certain level of respect. So when you come back to this country, not only do you have a sense of entitlement because you know that you've earned it from what you've done, in addition to that, you have a new self-respect about yourself. This is what I'm saying. And I want to give a shout out to Choo Choo. Thank you so much, Choo Choo. And thank you. You want to make sure I pronounce your name correct. Thank you so much for the Cash App contribution. This is what they felt. So when they came back, things changed. When the brothers came back from World War II, the Civil Rights Movement, World War II and the Korean War. After that, the Civil Rights Movement happened. Notice that. When the brothers came back from World War I, all these different things, more so they had towns all around. They were building up towns and had towns all the way around the country. And that's why you had that, the white folks said, we got to put these Negroes in place. Think about it. World War II ends in 1918. Red Summer happens in 1919. The brothers came back, feeling respectful of themselves, having been treated, seeing how they're supposed to be treated. And then they came back saying, we're not taking it anymore. So what happened? The white folks literally had to go to war to put these black men back in their place. They tried their best to get the French and all these other white European countries to treat black men the same way they treated us in the United States. But the other countries said, no, we're not going to do it, because they knew once these brothers got a taste of self-respect, they weren't going to revert. They weren't going to go back to allowing themselves to be treated like animals again. This is the thing. And this is what happened. And so every time brothers go overseas, every time fighting men go overseas and come back, it's always different. And this is no different. This is no different here. The brothers went overseas, they came back, and they felt different. Unfortunately, during the Vietnam War, they came back and they were called baby killers. This is what they came back to. But without further ado, I want to go ahead and get started. You guys, if you want to contribute to the Cash App, the PayPal, and the Super Chat, I'd appreciate it. The first person I want to discuss tonight is Sergeant Dwight H. Johnson. Now, as I read his bio, and we'll get to it in a minute, I could think of nothing but this man is like a black Superman right here, with balls of steel, literally. Now let's read a little bit about him before we get going good. His name is Dwight H. Johnson, Dwight Hal Johnson to be specific. He was born in 1947. So he was born right after, he was one of the baby boomer generation, as they call it. 1947, April 30th, 1971, a native of Detroit, Michigan, shout out to Motown, was a United States Army soldier who received the Medal of Honor for his actions in January 1968 during the Vietnam War. Johnson was born on May 7, 1947, and he lived in the E.J. Jeffries Homes, a housing project in Detroit, Michigan. He never knew his father, and his mother raised Dwight and a younger brother by herself. Drafted to serve in the United States Army in Vietnam. This man was drafted into the military. Now, mind you, if you remember the stats I put up before, black men were more likely to get drafted than white men. So it's a lot of white men who were born, they said they is a black man and went and fought in their behalf. This is what happened. But keep that in mind. This man was drafted into this war. Now, instead of half doing the job, or half, putting a little bit of, barely doing it and not being willing to, let's listen to what this man did. And shout out to Broken Blade. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate the super chat. Thank you so much. So he was a member of Company B, 1st Battalion, 69th Army, 4th Infantry Division. So what did he do? For conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity, at the risk of his own life above and beyond the call of duty, Specialist 5 Johnson, a tank driver. So he drives a tank. With Company B, was a member of a reaction force moving to aid other elements of his platoon, which was in heavy contact with the battalion-sized North Vietnamese force. That means 1,000. Now, they couldn't keep an exact count, but a battalion is about 1,000 men. So the North Vietnamese force had about 1,000 men. This is what they were dealing with, okay? Specialist Johnson's tank, upon reaching the point of contact, threw a track and became immobilized. What does that mean? You guys see these tanks have these long tracks, right? Like they look like what you would see on like a bulldozer or something like that, right? And so what ended up happening is the tank threw a track. The tank basically went off track, and so it's done at that point. You done. We don't know if it was a bomb. We don't know what happened. My man Choo Choo said my uncle drove tanks in Vietnam. Right. So the tank, the tank has thrown the track in the middle of the jungle. You've just hit the enemy, right? And so what do? Right? Y'all wait in the tank, right? Of course y'all wait in the tank. It's safe in the tank. Of course you're gonna wait in the tank, right? That's what you do, right? Yeah, that might be what you do, but that is not what this brother did. That's not what Dwight Hal Johnson did. What did he do? Realizing that he could do no more as a driver of the tank, he climbed out of the vehicle, armed only with a 45 caliber pistol. How many shots in a 45? Is it 10? How many? I think is it 10 or something like that? I can't recall. Despite intense hostile fire, basically his 45 is a sidearm. Pretty much every military part of your unit, you got a sidearm. That's your pistol. So he had a 45. He out there, my man from Detroit pulled that 45 out on him. Despite intense hostile fire, Specialist Johnson killed several enemy soldiers. Okay, before he expended his ammunition. In other words, he bust until he was all out of ammo. That's what he did. Then what did he do? He didn't run. He returned to his tank, threw a heavy volume of anti-tank rocket, small arms, and automatic weapons fire, and he obtained a submachine gun with which to continue his fight against the advancing enemy. So he said, you know what? I'm out of way. He went back. He dropped the clapper. He went back to the tank, got the chopper, returned to the fight. This is what he's doing, right? So he pulling triggers and pow, pow. Now, that's enough. I think, bro, that you already done enough. You fought, you done it. You go back. Wow. Now, armed with this weapon, Specialist Johnson again braved deadly enemy fire to return to the center of the ambush site, where he courageously eliminated more of the determined foe. The first thing that comes to my mind is this brother from Detroit must be a real good shot, because you out here in the middle of the jungle. You got all kind of leaves and stuff going on, and people run, and you busting and you killing people with a 45, and they shooting rockets at you, and you downing them with a 45. This is what this black man from Detroit did. This is what Hal did. This Sergeant Hal did this. This is what he did. So let's say his name again, Sergeant Johnson. Everybody know of Mr. Johnson. That Mr. Johnson that cut your hair is real cool. This is who he is. That old school cat right there. That's Mr. Johnson when he was a young man. This is what Mr. Johnson did. So all these little things you tell him about what you do and how tough you are, this is him thinking about the 10, 15, 20 men that he shot and the 5 or 10 men that he killed with his pistol. This is Mr. Johnson right here. So just keep that in mind, fellas. Now, again, you got to understand, a lot of these Vietnam War vets, they don't like to talk about their exploits in Vietnam. Because why? Because when they originally came home, people, wasn't really, people didn't really, they called them so many names and whatnot. They just kind of learned not to talk about it. This is what I've learned about Vietnam vets since I've been interacting with them. But let's finish, though. I want y'all to hear the rest of what he did, because we ain't even halfway through. Again, armed with his weapon, Specialist Johnson again braved the deadly enemy fire to return to the center of the ambush. He went back to the center of the ambush site, where he courageously eliminated more determined foe. Engaged in an extremely close combat, when the last of his ammunition expended, he killed an enemy soldier with the stock end of his submachine gun. Mr. Johnson beat a man to death with his rifle. That's what he said. I'm out of bullets. I'm gonna beat you to death with my rifle. This is a warrior right here. He is in the fight. Yeah, he got drafted. Yeah, he didn't volunteer. He didn't want to go. But when he got there, the warrior in him arrived on the plane that he got there in. This is Mr. Johnson right here. Keep that in mind, fellas. This is Dwight Hal Johnson, Sergeant Dwight Hal Johnson. Now weaponless in the middle of a war zone, Specialist Johnson ignored the enemy fire around him, climbed into his platoon sergeant's tank, extricated a wounded crew member. Let me take the homie back to what? I'm going to take him back to the armored personnel carrier. And then guess what he did? Guess what Mr. Johnson did? He then returned to the same tank, a gun until it jammed, which is a gun they have up on the turret of the tank. So look what this man did, man. He done killed people with 3 different weapons, one including the butt of his rifle. This is what Mr. Johnson did. And he shot the gun until it jammed. In a magnificent display of courage, Specialist Johnson then exited the tank again, armed with only a 45 caliber pistol. Again, We should call him Hal 45. This man needs to be a movie. Sergeant 45 should be his name. This is what I'm talking about. So he went back out with this pistol, right? He engaged several North Vietnamese troops in close proximity to his vehicle. In other words, he shot everybody around him, fighting his way through devastating fire, and then what? Remounting his immobilized tank, he remained fully exposed to the enemy as he bravely and skillfully engaged them with the tank's externally mounted 50 cal machine gun, where he remained until the situation was brought under control. Mr. Johnson brought the situation. You got 1,000 men in front of you. You got 1,000 men in front of you, and you refuse. Look, I'm gonna bust to this gun. I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna get something else. I'm gonna beat this clown to death with my rifle butt. Then I'm gonna go get the homie out the other tank, take him to safety, get his gun, gun from up on the turret of his tank, shoot some of them, go back to my gun, get another, and I'm gonna bust on them till they quit. This is Hal 50 cal. My man Broken Blade, Hal 50 cal. That's what's up. This is Hal 50 cal right here, man. This is what let's take a look at him. He looked cool. He looked like he keep that sharp fade too. He looked cool and calm. This is who Hal is, right? This is who this brother is. This is your ancestor right here, Sergeant Dwight H. Johnson. This is what I want you to remember. I want you to remember that face. That could be any one of our daddies right there. He looked like everybody daddy, somebody uncle, and maybe your cousin. That's him, right? That's him. And so what happened? Well, first of all, I just find this story amazing, right? 50 Hal cal. Specialist Johnson's profound concern for his fellow soldiers at the risk of his life and beyond the call and going above and beyond the call of duty and keeping the highest traditions of military service and reflect great credit upon himself in the United States Army. This is what this brother did, man. Now, here's what I want you guys to understand. Remember that conversation I had with y'all earlier? I want y'all to understand that. They came back to angry people who treated them horribly and called them names. The black man already got enough issues in America. The last thing he needs to be called is a baby killer. So this is what happened when Hal went home. As you see, he was a young man when he passed away in 1971. You can see that. You can see that he was only 24 years old. He did all of this damn near as a teenager, family. This is what Hal did. This is what this brother did. He was barely 20 years old when he did all that, man. And so some of you guys, man, y'all say, oh, I'm not mature. This man was 20 years old in the war zone, and he was conducting himself like a grown man. This is a warrior right here. But unfortunately, as it goes, after returning from Vietnam, Johnson had difficulty adjusting to his first post-war role. Until he was awarded the Medal of Honor, he had trouble finding work and got into great debt. After receiving the medal, he went back to the Army and worked as a recruiter and made public relations appearances. When he began missing appointments and speaking engagements, he was sent for a medical evaluation in which he was diagnosed with depression caused by post-Vietnam adjustment problems, often referred to as post-traumatic stress disorder. Just after 11:30 p.m. on April 29, 1971, Johnson was shot after entering an open pantry convenience store a mile from his home, drawing a revolver from under his top coat and demanding money from the cashier at the front store. The store owner was in the back office responding to Johnson's demand for all the cash. The owner was shot in the left bicep, 22 caliber bullet in return fired with a 38 special revolver. 7 shots were fired. Johnson sustained 4 bullet wounds, 3 to the chest and 1 to the face, and died on the operating table at 4 a.m. On April 30th, he was buried at Arlington National Cemetery. On May 6, 1971, his grave can be found in Section 31, Lot 471. Johnson's mother said, "Sometimes I wonder if Skip was tired of his life and needed someone else to pull the trigger." This is what happened to this brother. He was drafted into this war. This black man, I want y'all to get a good look at this brother. He was drafted into this war. He didn't want to go. He didn't volunteer to go to Vietnam, but he fought like the devil with an axe in his hand, and he handled himself tremendously well. Unfortunately, when he came home, he couldn't adjust. 24 years old. This man, I mean, the man probably barely had been with a woman when he got drafted into the U.S. Army. But he handled himself. Now, you know, one day you're in high school, next day you behind you driving a tank in a war zone with people trying to kill you, 1,000 miles from your house, 1,000 miles from anybody you ever known. This is what, and then when he came home, remember what I told you. They were addicted to drugs. They had issues. People call them baby killers. They couldn't share their story. Who you going to talk to? Everybody you talk to is calling you a baby killer. Instead of celebrating this man for doing what he had to do and being a warrior, guess what? He was spit upon just like the rest of the Vietnam warriors, Vietnam soldiers. But we as black people, we forget these brothers. Look at what this brother did, man. Look at how valiantly he fought. That's who that is. Look at him. This is you. This black man should be celebrated. He would only be 60-some years old right about now. This black man should be celebrated and remembered. And that's why we remember their names today. Sergeant Dwight Hal Johnson. You guys want to call him 50 Cal Hal. That's who this is. This is what he came back with. But we celebrate him and his accomplishments. And what we will do is, we as black men, we will remember him. We will remember him for the warrior that he was. The reluctant warrior, because he didn't ask to go over there, but a warrior and a dynamic warrior, cool as a cucumber. Cool. Handled himself like a Shaka Zulu would be proud, I'm sure, and so would Hannibal. But yeah, let's acknowledge Sergeant Dwight Hal Johnson. And if his family is watching, we want to thank you for the sacrifice of this great man, this warrior. And we acknowledge his presence on this planet. And we acknowledge that he fought valiantly in defense of his friends and his comrades. So, and we can only ask so much of him. But thank you so much. We'll move on to the next one here. The next gentleman we'll talk about is Mr. Garfield Mcconnell Langhorne. I have a picture of this young brother, right? That's him. But in the meantime, if you guys appreciate this, man, hit the #1 button. Again, I don't expect a whole lot of people to be in here. I'm doing this for you guys. You guys wanted this. You want to talk about warriors? I'm here for you guys. Make sure you contribute to the Super Chat, the Cash App, and the PayPal. I could definitely be talking about current events. I could be talking about Brittany Renner robbing that young boy for all that money every month for child support. I've had 200-300 people in here. But see, this page is dedicated to the brothers, and I want you brothers to appreciate yourself. The way in which you begin to appreciate yourselves is you begin to appreciate what other black men did for you, the sacrifices that they made. Then you can look at yourself and say, man, that's what our brothers did. So they can never tell you the black men haven't built anything. Not only did we help build this country, but we also helped defend this country with our lives even. So you don't forget that. You don't forget Sergeant Dwight Hal Johnson, 50 Cal Hal. You don't forget him. You throw his name up every time somebody says black men don't build anything or black men haven't done enough for this country. We fought in every war, and I'm giving you names now. I'm not just telling you, I'm giving you names. So you remember these names. Remember their names. When you speak about your ancestors, they come back to you. Their spirits come back to you. We need that black warrior spirit. Shout out to Black Warrior Spirit. We need that spirit. We need to remember our black American military men and Vietnam War heroes, all our heroes. But we need to remember them and acknowledge them. This is what I want you to do. Remember him. So now I want to talk to you guys about Private First Class Garfield Mcconnell Langhorne. Okay. Garfield M. Mcconnell Langhorne. He was a private first class. Let's read a little bit about him. He was born in September 1948. Again, another baby boomer. He died at 21 years old, family. Matter of fact, he was, wow. So this brother, He was 20 years old. Look at it. Born in 1948 in September 1948. Died January 15, 1969. So he had just turned, wow. So he was 20 years old. He was a United States Army soldier and recipient of America's highest military decoration, the Medal of Honor, for his actions in the Vietnam War. Now, I want you guys to, I tell young people all the time how selfish they are. This is young people's issue. They're very selfish, right? And you say, oh, he's young, he'll grow out of it. He's 20, he's 23, he's 24, he's 25. Very selfish. Older people tell you all the time, be very selfish, right? I want you to pay attention to the story of Private First Class Garfield Mcconnell Langhorne. He received the highest military decoration, the Medal of Honor, for his actions in Vietnam. Well, who was he? He was born in September 10th, 1948 in Cumberland, Virginia, Langhorne, and was living in Brooklyn, New York. Remember, I told you guys it was a great migration. Black people moved to the north. They might have been born in the South, but they didn't want to stay there. They were dealing with segregation. You know, this is not some place that was. So they ended up, they would go different places. So New York was one of them. New York, Chicago, Detroit, all these different places. This is where they went. So this brother, he was born in Virginia. Family decided we're going to move to New York. So they moved to Brooklyn. Shout out to the BK. When he joined the U.S. Army, he served in Vietnam as a private first class and radio operator with Troop C, 7th Squadron, Air Mobile, 7th Cavalry Regiment, 1st Aviation Brigade. That means they had helicopters. On January 15, 1969, Langhorne's unit attempted to rescue the crew of a downed American helicopter near Pai Drang in Phu Province, South Vietnam. What happened? Somebody shot a helicopter down. That was one of their guys in the cavalry. The cavalry, they didn't have horses anymore. The cavalry was helicopters. This is the first time that helicopters were used in this manner. In that you guys see the helicopters all the time. I forget the name of who knows the name of the helicopters that they use. The basically the gunships. They were bringing the men in. I forget the name of the helicopters. I want to call them. They're not Hueys. Maybe they are. You guys give me that name. But basically, they use the cavalry. The cavalry were the helicopters. Nobody's using horses anymore. So the cavalry was the helicopters. So one of their guys got shot. One of the copters got shot down. And so they went in to get the crew out. After finding the crash site and the bodies of the dead crewmen, the unit turned back. Because why? We don't leave anybody down. We don't leave anybody behind. And that's what they're supposed to do. So even if they're dead, you still bag them, put them in a bag, you take them home and send them home to their mamas. The unit turned back only to be attacked by entrenched North Vietnamese forces. See, what you got to understand is the Vietnamese knew that the Americans were going to come try to find their dead soldiers. And so all they had to do was lay in wait, and eventually somebody would show up. Because, of course, they always go get their dead. We don't leave anybody behind. That's the motto. Of course, we know it happens. Nothing's perfect. But so the Vietnamese knew. And here's another thing. The men who were going out there knew they were coming. That's the worst thing that can happen to you. Your enemy knows where you're going to be, and all they got to do is lay in wait for you. So everybody knew what was going to happen, right? This is what they knew what was going to happen. So the entrenched so they ran across some entrenched North Vietnamese forces, which means these folks is heading out. They were laying and waiting for you. During the battle, Langhorne threw himself on an enemy hand grenade that had been thrown near several wounded soldiers. He was killed in the ensuing explosion, but succeeded in protecting the lives of his fellow soldiers. This is what this man did at 20 years old. He sacrificed himself. So when I tell you guys about when older people say, man, you're selfish. Let me read. I want you to read a little bit more. Okay. We got to give him all of this. So Private Langhorne's platoon was inserted into the landing zone to rescue two pilots of a Cobra helicopter shot down by the enemy fire on a heavily timbered slope. So they up a hill, right? You know, he provided radio coordination with the command and control aircraft overhead while the troops hacked their way through the dense undergrowth to the wreckage where both aviators were found dead. What does that mean? They literally mean you got trees everywhere. You don't even have enough room for a man to walk through. You got to hack your way through. You don't know what's going to be behind the next bamboo or whatever. But this is what they were doing. Just to be out there like that, you got to be a brave soul. So what did he do? He provided radio coordination with the command and control aircraft overhead while the troops hacked their way through dense undergrowth to the wreckage, where both aviators were found dead. As the men were taking the bodies to a pickup site, they suddenly came under intense fire from North Vietnamese soldiers in camouflage bunkers to the front, right, and flank. Within minutes, they were surrounded. Private Langhorne immediately radioed for help from the orbiting gunships, which began to place minigun rocket fire and aggressors. He then lay between a platoon leader and another man operating the radio, providing covering for the wounded who had been moved to the center of the small perimeter. So you got people, they fighting in a circle. You got your back to your guy and y'all in the circle and y'all fighting everybody that surrounds you. This is what they're doing, basically laying face down. You looking at the enemy, it's like a circle of dudes with guns pointed out. And you putting the people who are wounded in the center. So this is what he's doing. So he's laying between two guys, one the commander who's giving orders and another guy who's shooting, who's providing cover fire. This is what they were doing. Darkness soon fell. So now it's dark. Fell, making it impossible for the gunships to continue accurate support, and aggressors began to probe the perimeter. In other words, you got this little small circle. The helicopters are gone. Nobody can help you. Y'all out there all night by yourself, surrounded by enemies. This is what happened. An enemy grenade landed in front of PFC. So what happened? You laying next to your dude, y'all all in a circle. A grenade lands in front of you. Nothing you can do about it. He apparently propped himself up and propped down on the grenade and it exploded underneath him. But he did that why? To save the guys that were next to him. This is what he did. This is what Private Langhorne did. This is what he did. He saved his friends. He saved his battle buddies. He chose to protect these wounded. And this is also the other people behind him that were wounded. He chose to protect these wounded, and he unhesitatingly threw himself on a grenade, scooped it beneath his body, and absorbed the blast. By sacrificing himself, he saved the lives of his comrade. Private Langhorne's extraordinary heroism at the cost of his life was keeping with the highest traditions of the military service and reflect great credit upon himself, his unit, and the U.S. Army. This is what this man did. He received the Purple Heart for that. The Medal of Honor, the Purple Heart, the National Defense Service Medal, Vietnam Service Medal, Republic of Vietnam Cross of Gallantry, and Republic of Vietnam Campaign Medal. This is what this man did. Because remember, we were fighting the North Vietnamese, but we were also allied with the South Vietnamese. So even that foreign army had to recognize him for what he did. So this is this man. I want you to look at this 20-year-old brother. Look at him. That looked like us, family. That's our brother right there. That's what this 20-year-old man did. So don't forget his name. Private Garfield Mcconnell Langhorne. You want a friend like that in a war zone, family. You want a friend like that in a war zone. This is the type of black man you want next to you. That's a friend right there. When you can't help yourself, this is what a friend looks like. He gave his life for those men. It wasn't about the war at that point. It was about the man next to him that's in the fight. He sacrificed himself so they could keep fighting. He did that for them. And this is the respect and admiration that we as men are supposed to have for each other. This is the difference between the superficial love that women provide and the respect and honor to share between fighting men, especially warriors in the battlefield. Think about that. Somebody is able to spend time with their grandchildren right now because this man right here, Garfield Mcconnell Langhorne, sacrificed his life for them. You keep that in mind. Several families, apparently. You think about that. Remember his face. He looks like you. This was a great man at 20 years old. Look at who he was. Keep that in mind. Keep that in mind the next time when somebody tells you what black men ain't and what they need to do. You remember Private Langhorne. You remember him. You remember him. And don't forget his name. If you guys appreciate what I'm doing, make sure you contribute to the Super Chat, the Cash App, and the PayPal. Also hit the #1 button. I hope you guys are enjoying this. Make sure you when you come in, make sure you hit the thumbs up button, family. I need y'all to hit the thumbs up button and show your appreciation. I want to talk to you guys about this brother. He was born in 1929, right? Born in 1929. His name was Matthew Leonard. Sergeant first class. Skilled in action. Let's hit the number 1 button for all the veterans we talked about so far, all these great men. Sergeant Dwight Johnson, Private First Class Garfield Langhorne. Let's hit the number 1 button for them and all the veterans. We want to acknowledge all the black veterans out there. Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine. We want to acknowledge them. Coast Guard even. Let's acknowledge them. Hit the number 1 button for the black veterans making this example. They definitely don't get the respect they deserve, especially from black folks. A lot of black folks see the Army as a hustle. Yeah, man, go to the Army, get your check. They don't know the sacrifice that these black veterans make. They got to deal with racism, all that foolishness, and they got to be out there fighting. So let's acknowledge them. These men fought valiantly. So this brother was about 38 years old, 37 years old, and he was in the United States Army. He was a sergeant who posthumously received America's highest military decoration, the Medal of Honor, for his actions in Vietnam. Let's read a little bit about him. He was from, where is the Alabama people? Utah, I can't say it. Leonard was from Alabama, okay? He married his elementary school sweetheart, Lois, and they had 5 children. So he's 37. He had 5 kids already. That man was busy. Matthew Leonard entered the Army from Birmingham, Alabama in 1949. He served in both the Korean and the Vietnam Wars. Oh, so this is an enlisted man. He went in. He volunteered. He served in both the Korean and Vietnam Wars. On February 28, 1967, Leonard was serving as platoon sergeant with Company B, 1st Battalion, 16th Infantry, 1st Infantry Division, near So Dae, South Vietnam. When his platoon came under attack, Sergeant Leonard organized the defense and encouraged his men. Despite suffering several wounds, he continued to command and eventually charged the enemy machine gun. And he was wounded again during the charge and died soon after. They're not telling you the whole story. Let me read to you what this brother did. President of the United States of America, in the name of Congress, takes pride in presenting the Medal of Honor to Sergeant First Class Matthew Leonard. He went above and beyond the call of duty. He served Company B, 1st Battalion, 6th Infantry Regiment, 1st Infantry Division in action against the enemy aggressor in South Vietnam. This happened on the 28th day of February in 1967. Platoon Sergeant Leonard's platoon was suddenly attacked by a large enemy force employing small arms, automatic weapons, and hand grenades. Although the platoon leader and several other key leaders were among the first wounded, in other words, he was shot already, Platoon Sergeant Leonard quickly rallied his men to throw back the initial enemy assault. During the short pause that followed, he organized a defensive perimeter, redistributed ammunition, and inspired his comrades through his forceful leadership and words of encouragement. Noticing a wounded companion outside the perimeter, he dragged the man to safety, but was struck by a sniper's bullet, which shattered his left hand. So he shot in the left hand. Refusing medical attention. I'm good. He continuously exposing himself to increasing fire as the enemy again assaulted the perimeter. Platoon Sergeant Leonard moved from position to position to direct the fire of his men against the well-camouflaged foe. Under the cover of the main attack, the enemy moved a machine gun into the location. I want y'all to hear what this man did. I want you to hear what this man did. He recognized the enemy did what? They moved a machine gun. They moved a machine gun in his perimeter. And near his location. Enemy moved a machine gun into a location where it could sweep the entire perimeter. In other words, they moved that machine gun in a place where they could kill everybody on that side of where the perimeter was. This threat was magnified when the platoon machine gun, that's their machine gun, in this area malfunctioned. So what did this sergeant do? What do you guys think he did? He didn't say retreat. He didn't say duck for cover. He didn't say every man for himself. The platoon sergeant, Leonard, quickly crawled to the gun position and was helping to clear the malfunction when the gunner and the other men in the vicinity were wounded by fire from the enemy's machine gun. So before they was able to get their machine gun ready, the enemy, the Vietnamese machine gun, shot them up. What did platoon sergeant do then? Platoon sergeant Leonard rose to his feet, charged the enemy gun, and destroyed the hostile crew, despite being hit several times by enemy fire. Let me explain to y'all what he just did. Recognizing that their machine gun, which is the best bet that they had, the crew just got shot. He didn't have time to try to reset and fire back. He stood up. This man stood up, knowing that he was about to get shot by these people's machine gun, and he charged them. And he killed them all. That's what he did. He charged the machine gun and killed them all. Some of y'all running from firecrackers. This man charged the machine gun. He rose to his feet. He charged the enemy gun and destroyed the hostile crew, despite being hit several times by an enemy. Then what happened? Then he moved to a tree. He didn't lay down and die. He moved to a tree. He propped himself up against it, and he continued to engage the enemy. He continued fighting. He continued shooting. He continued to engage the enemy until he succumbed to his many wounds. This is what this man did. I want you to look at him again. This is what this black man did. This is Sergeant Matthew Leonard. This man had 5 children. Look as friendly as can be. Look, we know a guy like got a nice smile like that. Look friendly as can be. Alabama raised. Married his elementary school sweetheart. Had 5 children. Was living his life. But he was willing to sacrifice all that happiness for what he believed in. He didn't have to do all that. He didn't have to rush that machine gun like that. He didn't have to do that. Now what happened when the other soldiers saw what he did after he died? They were inspired. His fighting spirit and heroic leadership and valiant acts inspired the remaining members of his platoon to hold back the enemy until the assistance arrived. He inspired them to keep fighting and help came. All of them could have been wiped out. They could have quit. They could have put their flags up. They could have quit. But because they saw what Sarge did, they kept fighting. And sometimes, family, if you just keep fighting and you refuse to quit, sometimes your enemy will relinquish. They'll relent. They'll quit. Sometimes you refuse to quit fighting. Sometimes help will come in time. If you refuse to quit, this is what he did. This is what he did for them. He inspired them to keep going. How many of you guys, and I've been in this situation myself, you've been so at your wits' end, your enemies got you surrounded, you down by 10, you know, you got 3 minutes left on the clock, but somebody says, keep fighting. And I'm going to show you how to do it. And they go up and make that sacrifice. This man had 5 children. He gave all of that up. He gave all of that up for the men that he respected and fought alongside of. And that kept them going. If he, as a leader, if I quit, they're going to quit too. So he knew he had an obligation to keep pushing. And he gave his best, even shot up knowing he was going to die. He still kept shooting at the enemy. This is what it said. What did he say? He moved to a tree, propped himself up against it, and continued to engage the enemy until he succumbed to his wounds. And that's a war. You fight to your last breath. You fight until you pass out and you die. This is what he did. Leonard's profound courage and devotion to his men, are in keeping with the highest traditions of the military service, and his gallant actions reflect great credit upon himself and the U.S. Army. That's the warrior spirit, family. Remember his name. You remember his name. Remember him. From Alabama. Sergeant Matthew Leonard. Died at 37 years old. You remember this man. And for all those of y'all who think 37 is old, he was fighting a war at 37. For you guys who think married men are soft, this man had 5 kids. Y'all think he didn't have a whole lot of girlfriends. Apparently, he married his elementary school sweetheart. This is who this man was. Receiving Medal of Honor. So you guys remember these heroes, man. Last up, we're going to talk about Donald Russell Long. But before we get started, make sure you hit the #1 button, family. I hope you guys appreciate what I'm doing here. Of course, this is a labor of love. We got 34 people in the chat room. People are clicking in and clicking out. They're like, I don't want to hear about no Vietnam War veterans. You know, normally what I have is this lets me know this is my hardcore group of brothers right here. Because remember, you know, I get a lot of people who come to the page and they want to hear this stuff and they want to hear me beat people up and, you know, basically cross-examine people like that. But this is food for you. This is good for your soul. You will remember this for 30 years. You will remember this to your deathbed. This is a story you'll be able to tell your grandchildren about Donald Russell Long and Sergeant Johnson, as you call 50 Hal Cal. You see what I'm saying? Or 50 Cal Hal. You remember him. You remember what happened to Sergeant Dwight Johnson when he came home. You remember that. And you'll make sure you tip your hat when you see another military serviceman fresh home from overseas, especially if they're black, because they got enough to deal with over here to have to come back with that. You remember Garfield Langhorn, that 20-year-old brother who jumped on that grenade to save the rest of the people. You remember this married man from Alabama, Sergeant Matthew Leonard, who propped himself up against a tree and kept firing, who rushed a machine gun and then propped himself up against a tree and kept firing. For what? For his men. For the men he was standing next to. Because that's what leaders do. That's what leaders do. And that's leadership right there. They lead from the front. Nothing that I ask you brothers to do, I haven't already done myself. That's leadership. I'm not going to ask you to put your life on the line if I'm not putting my life on the line right next to you. That's leadership. Anybody that's telling you to do something and they haven't done the damn thing themselves, they're not a leader. They're just a talker. When I tell you brothers to put yourselves first, it's because that's what I do. When I tell you it's going to be hard, I'm telling you what I had to go through. I'm speaking to you from experience. I'm not talking to you brothers in theory. When I'm telling you about all the sacrifices that I make, everything that I had to deal with, is to inspire you because you have that journey too. Now, your journey may be a little bit different than mine, but that's okay. It's still going to be hard if it's worthwhile. But if you see me over here on the other side doing it, and I'm still pushing, that means you can do it. I tell you guys all the time, I want somebody to take my place. I want you to say, we got it now, Uncle D. We got it down, Mr. Sperling. We good. When you get strong enough, in order to be a strong man, you got to go through a strong man. Some of you are not used to black men talking to you like this. Some of you don't like the fact that, hey, I'm just as how I am. I'm not forgiving. I tell you guys all the time I'm mean. It's cool when I'm mean and say mean things to the people that's picking on y'all. But you don't like it when I deal with you in the same manner. Without emotion, sometimes with emotion. Sometimes I poke you and prod you. I get it. You're not supposed to like it. But that's what being a man is about. We're supposed to be able to communicate with each other. We're supposed to be able to talk to each other forcefully and angry if we have to and be mean to each other. That's respect. That's how respect develops. But the thing is, you got to understand, I'm not talking to you from a place of theory. I'm talking to you from 47 years of sacrifice and hard work and diligence. and respectability. That's how I'm talking to you, brothers. And I know you don't necessarily understand right now because you're in your teens and 20s and 30s. Some of you are older. Maybe you can identify with what I'm saying. But I want you brothers to recognize that these men right here, they wasn't no soft talking men. I promise you that. Not having been warriors, not doing the things they did. Nobody was talking to them soft. And they wasn't talking to anybody soft. When this brother said he was giving out orders, Sergeant Leonard was giving out orders, willing to give his life for these men, he wasn't talking to them softly. He was urging them to fight on, urging them to give their all. And he showed them by example. That's what he did. So we appreciate him, and I appreciate you guys, and I hope you appreciate these warriors right here, man. We're going to talk to another brother. This is the last one for the night. Donald Russell Long. Let's get him in here. I want to put this screen back up in here so you can see the brother. Donald Russell Long. And he was from Blackford, Ohio. Anybody from Ohio in here? Shout out to everybody from Ohio. We had Detroit, Alabama, and Brooklyn representing tonight. Brooklyn by way of, Virginia. And now we got Ohio. So this brother, let's take a look at him. He was also killed in action. This is who he was. He one of them light-skinned brothers, one of them Geechee light-skinned dudes from Black, white, Native American. I've seen some dudes like that from North Carolina. Kind of look like my man Devin up in here, man. This is who he was. Long was Black, white, Native American. He's still a Negro, but we get it. And was son of Herman Long and Mildred Keels. Many of his ancestors, along with the majority of Black Fork community members, descended from the free people of color from Virginia and North Carolina. See, the thing is, you got to understand, there was a lot of free Black people in the United States also. You know, before the war, after the war, there's a lot of free Black people. And I'm talking about the Civil War. Some Black folks were never slaves. And he was one of them. I know some people like that up here in North Carolina. They got streets named after them and stuff. Hell, some of them even owned slaves. We talked about that too. But he was descended from free people of color from Virginia, North Carolina, and many of them were Native Americans from tribes such as the Saponi. Sergeant Long graduated from Decatur Washington High School in Blackford, Ohio. Long joined the Army in Ashland, Kentucky in 1963. He joined the Army. This is an enlisted man. And by June 30, 1966, which is 3 years later, was serving as a sergeant in Troop C, 1st Squadron, 4th Cavalry Regiment, 1st Infantry Division. On the day Long's unit came under heavy enemy fire attack during a reconnaissance patrol. During the battle, a hand grenade was thrown near Long and the crew of disabled armored personnel carrier. He threw himself on the grenade, successfully protecting his fellow soldiers while sacrificing his own life. And what you got to remember, fellas, is I believe at this time, over 40% of the fighting men in the Vietnam War were Black men. It was either 30 or 40%. You guys, if you get that real quick, check. 30 to 40% of the fighting men in Vietnam were Black men. Now, we only compose 6% of the United States population. And 40%, we should have only been 6%. But remember, as a Black man, you were more likely to get drafted and put into the military than a white man were back then. Matter of fact, the vast majority of I think it was 95% of the members of the draft board were white. So who they were doing? They was pulling Black men left and right. So you had Black men being drafted, Black men signing up, wasn't a whole lot of jobs to go home to. And so you had brothers re-enlisting. But this is what this brother did. He sacrificed himself for your men. When you're around people and these are your guys, and you know, those of you guys who've been in the military, imagine your drill sergeant or your staff sergeant, he yelling at you, got you doing all this stuff. And then you go to war with this man, and the same man is the one that jumps on the grenade and saves your life. You think he didn't like you. You thought he was mean. He was just serious. And he wanted you to be as tough, as mean as he was. He was willing to give his life for you. He wanted to train you up and bring you with. You think he's mean. No, he loves you. And that's the way men show love. I'm going to make you strong. I'm going to make you better. I'm going to make you strong. I'm going to make you better. And I'm going to show you how much I appreciate you. Why? Because I want you to stand next to me in this war. And I want to know I can be able to depend upon you in this war. Because it's going to be you and I out there. And I got to know you made of the right stuff for me to be worthy for me to sacrifice myself for. This is what this man did. Now you saw what Sergeant Langhorne, Private Langhorne did, and Sergeant Russell Long did the same thing. He sacrificed his own life for his men, probably the same men that he'd been yelling at and commanding and stuff. They probably thought he was mean. He light-skinned. They probably thought he thought he was better than them. And he jumped on the grenade to sacrifice himself for them. Isn't that something? On May 29, 2016, a commemoration in Oak Hill, Ohio took place. During the ceremony. HB 366 named a portion of State Route 93 from southern boundary of the village of Oak Hill to Jackson County line the name Sergeant Donald Russell Long, Medal of Honor recipient, Memorial Highway. Donald Long died age 26. His death he was buried at Union Baptist Church in Cemetery, Blackford. I want to look a little bit more, you know. This is him again. He also received the Purple Heart. And this is him, brothers. This is him. This is another soldier here. A sergeant specifically. Medal of Honor, Purple Heart, Combat Infantryman Badge, Marksmanship Badge, National Defense Service Medal, Vietnam Campaign Medal, Vietnam Service Medal, Army Presidential Unit Citation, Vietnam Gallantry Cross, Army Good Conduct Medal. This is who this brother was. He's a good soldier. This is the brother right here. So we've talked about Sergeant Hal Johnson, Brother Garfield, Private Garfield Langhorne, Matthew Leonard, Alabama, and now, of course, Sergeant Russell Long. So these are men I want you guys to remember. I want you to remember their names. I want you to acknowledge them as warriors. I want you to, if there's something in this story that inspired you, I want you to remember it. And I want you to hopefully make this part of your character and who you are. But more importantly, you should have pride in this, in the accomplishments of Black men and the sacrifices that they've made for the United States, for your freedom. I just want you to remember their heroism, their individual heroism. Whether or not you agree with the particular war they were fighting or not, or the cause, that doesn't matter. That didn't take away from their individual heroic acts. Acts comported by who? Black men just like you. Black American men at that. Now, again, we got great respect for our Haitian brothers and the Haitian Revolution, and we have great respect for what Shaka Zulu did and all the great kings of Africa and generals like Hannibal. We appreciate everything you've done. But it's time for Black men to begin to appreciate the heritage that we have, the warrior heritage that we have, born and bred here in the United States. We need to show appreciation for our Black American military men. That's what's important to us. Because, see, that's something you can reach up and grab. That's something that you can appreciate. Now, I'm going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. And I want to bring people in if you want to come in. But just breathe this in. And I'm going to ask you a few questions. I'm not going to hold you that long, but I want to give you an opportunity to debrief and talk about how you feel about this. We got 26 people in the chat room. Brothers, make sure you hit the like button. And we'll be right back. The only time Black men are allowed to speak is when it benefits others. So, hey, this is your opportunity to speak. I want to hear from you. And if you want to make this voice louder and clearer, then what you need to do is contribute to the Cash App, the PayPal, and the Super Chat. I appreciate you.
Hey, if you're enjoying the content here at Dennis Sperling Unfiltered, make sure you support it by sharing, and subscribing to the channel. And also, hit that little notification bell in the corner so that you'll get notice of each and every one of our live feeds. Hey, what's up, everybody? If you appreciate the format and you appreciate what we're doing here, then make sure you contribute to the Cash App, make sure you contribute to the PayPal, make sure you donate to the Super Chat. It's only you and your contributions that keep this thing going. Thanks. All right, we're back. We got the link in the chat room. I'd love to hear from you guys, man. This is just an opportunity for you to debrief, you know, because, I mean, this should have got you excited. I mean, this is something exciting to listen to. You're hearing about, I've never heard these stories before. Nobody ever taught me any of this. It's amazing. It's amazing the information is out there about your own history. There's absolutely no way. I have had 1, 2, 3, 9. I've had 13 years of higher education between my two PhDs, my two master's degrees, at least my JD, my bachelor's, my JD, my master's degree in law, my master's in 2 PhD studies. I've had 13 years of higher education, and I've yet to hear anything about this. In conversations with people who consider themselves historians, they always talk about Africa. They go straight to Egypt. They talk about Timbuktu. I've never heard Black military war history before. In a time where we need more Black boys to understand and have examples of masculinity, I've never heard stories of Sergeant Dwight Johnson before. I've never heard anything about Sergeant Matthew Leonard or Sergeant Donald Long or Private Langhorne. I've never heard that. Nobody's ever talked about that. Anybody who wants to come in the conversation, man, why is that we don't hear about these sort of heroic feats? Why is that? And got them going, says some estimate between 37 and 42% of Black men comprise of combat vets. That's amazing. You got 6% of the population making up damn near 40% of the fighting force in your army. In your army, this is what you have. You can never let them tell you that Black men haven't contributed. Never let anybody tell you that Black men got a free ride here in the United States. You never let anybody tell you that Black men haven't contributed to the well-being and welfare of this country. Don't you ever let them tell you that lie. We've only went over 8 of these men. I got about another 10 to go, a little bit more than that. You remember that, brothers. If you want to join the conversation, come on in. The link is in the chat room. I'm not going to belabor the point. I'd love to hear from you guys. If not, I understand. We got 28 people in the chat room. Hit the number 1 button for the veterans. Hit the number 1 button for yourself and your legacy, because these men are part of your legacy. This is part of your legacy that nobody else can take from you. There ain't not one Black woman in sight. There ain't no Africans and West Indian. Oh, we love you, but you ain't here. These are Black American men fighting these men. They from Alabama, Detroit, Brooklyn by way of Virginia. Where else did we have the brother from? Where was Hal from? 50 Cal Hal. Where was he from? Detroit. We got him in. Virginia. Where else did we have? Who else was the brothers from? Alabama. That's right. Alabama, Ohio, Virginia. This is where our brothers from. But either way, man, we got Devin Lockett in the house, man. It's always good to have Devin, man. I'm gonna tell you, you look just like this brother, man. You look just like. I'm gonna put his picture back up. You look. Y'all look like. This look like you right here, brother. Look at that, man. They got the same nose. Look at that, man. Look at that soldier, man. But either way, man, thank you so much for coming in. I appreciate you here. You know, I love having you here. It's great having a more mature brother like myself in here, man. You know, but man, you grew up in the same time period as I did, so you remember the Vietnam vets. You were probably a little boy when they were coming home, and and so it's like this is what they went through, man. What's your thoughts, man?
You know, I was trained by a lot of vets. I went into the military in '84. So okay. The generation that was above me were the guys that came back from Nam.
Yeah. What was that like? What were they like?
Those were some solid brothers, man. Those were some solid black men. And, you know, those were the kind of brothers that we really need to keep as examples. You know what I mean? You know, the thing is, man, I'm glad you're bringing this all up, especially with regard to the Warriors, you know, mainly because of the patriotism aspect of it, man. You know, people don't like to see black men own this country. This is our country. And they like to frame us, you know, with the whole BLM thing and everything. They like to frame us as victims of America or subjects of America or captives of America. And that is not true. We earned this country with blood, sweat, and tears just as much as any white man or anybody. You know,
more so. Because you think about it, you got 6% of the population, which is what black men compose of. If we 13% of the population, basically 6% is 6.5% of the population. Now, how many of those men were too young to fight, and how many were too old to fight? So what does that say? That's a large chunk of fighting age black men. If you got 40% of your military force, that's a large chunk of the fighting age black men overseas, man. You see what I mean? This is a sacrifice these brothers made. Go ahead, brother. What else? Go ahead.
I don't know if you remember the Norman Rockwell painting of a Vietnam War scene with a black soldier feeding his blood directly into his white wounded soldier on the ground. It was going straight from his vein into the white soldier's vein. And yeah, that was a Norman Rockwell painting. And that type of scenario had to occur, right? With the brothers pulling the others out of a jam so frequently that it had to become a cliche in order for him to even want to depict that scenario. Wow. And I know that there are a lot of untold stories of black valor on the battlefield that unfortunately these brothers never got their valor. You know, they never got their Medal of Honor. But to hear about 50 cal Al, man, Hal, 50 cal Hal, that's for real. Yeah, that's for real. You know, we think about the ferocity, and you think about it, right? He had the handgun. He had the big 50 cal machine gun. He had his rifle, and he butt stroke. If you kill a man with your bare hands, you are a killer. Anybody can point a weapon, right? You get to the point of actually killing with your hands, you a real warrior.
Shout out to Motown. He from Detroit. He from the projects of Detroit. That's where he was from, man. Is this the photograph you're talking about right here? Is this it?
No, it's a Norman Rockwell painting, man, and I believe it was Norman Rockwell, and the brother is actually on his feet, and he's on his feet like still shooting, and he's actually giving a transfusion to a white soldier, a white U.S. soldier that is lying down on the ground next to him.
Wow, that's amazing. I want to hear a little bit more about like what was it like working with the guys. What was it like working with these guys who had just came back from Vietnam? Because if you got there in the 80s, they've been back stateside for about maybe 8-9 years, so they was still fresh in their mind. What kind of stories did they tell about what Vietnam was like? If they go into, who knows, they might not have wanted to talk about it.
No, a lot of them would, man, especially when we were out on training. When we were out in training, man, they told stories that'll make the hair stand up on the back of your neck. Yeah. And you know, when I see the brothers, you know, I've worked in a couple of VA hospitals out here in California, and when I see the brothers, you know, and when I say brothers, I'm speaking from a military veteran's perspective.
Of course, right, yes, sir.
All races, right? You know, I can understand what they're going through with that PTSD. You know, when I was a kid.
I mean, look, man, Hal Johnson seems to be everybody's favorite. What is it like? I mean, and I know you've talked to a lot of black veterans. What's it like? What is this PST? I mean, what happens? Like, I get it, trauma. What happens? Like, tell us, how does this happen? And to see Hal Johnson, he handled himself so magnificently in the war, right? And then when he comes home, what happens to you when you come home and you're no longer driving a tank? You're no longer. You just, I mean, talk to him, man. Go ahead, just tell him from your perspective, especially as a black man.
what people don't understand, right? When you hear the story of what happened that day, right? You think about the ferocity and you think about the panic of being having all of these enemies coming at you constantly, right? But my brother kept a cool head under those extreme circumstances, and that's a skill set that a lot of people can never obtain. And unfortunately, once you do obtain it, you know, it's kind of like you kind of need that extra stimuli in order to put you back into that nirvana kind of state. Because listen, I imagine a brother with a real cool head, if he was able to go from one tank to the other, go from one weapon to the other, to improvise, to use his hands when necessary, to go back and man the big gun and that's a cool head. That wasn't a hot-headed brother. He was under stress, and he learned at a very young age to handle being under that extreme stress by picking up a gun. And unfortunately, trying to make his adjustment back to the civilian world. In the civilian world, that was still a racist society. You got to understand, this is a brother in the 60s trying to get a damn job, okay? Regardless of whether or not he's a war hero. And even if he was a war hero, half the white people hate him for being a damn war hero. So, you know, that's a fact, you know. So yeah, I mean, I hate to hear the story end that way, but at the same time, I can understand my brother picking up a weapon to solve the problem because he was under extreme stress. He wasn't under the same kind of stress as he was on that day in combat, but his security, his life was falling out from underneath him. He was in the scenery. He was in the environment that should be the most familiar thing in the world to him. And yet his ability to be the man that he was. He wasn't just any man. He was a hero. He knew who he was.
He had actually traveled around, and people he had asked to speak in different places, and he met the president and all kinds of stuff. I mean, I got pictures of him meeting the president. You know what I mean? I'm looking at this photograph now. This is who this man was, you know, and it's a shame we don't have anything for our veterans to help them debrief. This is him receiving a Medal of Honor from Lyndon Baines Johnson for his valiancy. Think about that, man, for how valiant he was. And now this man ends up on a corner robbing somebody or trying to rob somebody for a few dollars. This is what we do to our war heroes. This is what we do to our war fighters. You go from being this guy to getting shot down in the liquor store. That don't make sense to me. You know, even the tribal Indians, when they would come back from a war path here in America, they would make them sit outside of the tent huddle, whatever, where the main body of the women and children were. They would have to sit out and debrief and just chill there for a couple of days, a couple of weeks until they got their mind right. It just seems to me like we don't acknowledge PTSD. What do we do when our soldiers break, Devin? I mean, what do we do?
Very sad, man. It's very sad. We abandon them, and then we get them on drugs. And then when they stop coming to the hospital, then the VA mails the drugs to you because the VA doesn't want to get caught not having given you drugs if you go postal on somebody. And that's all they care about is that liability and keeping you drugged up. But you know, when I was a kid, we would go to church, right? And then I would see the soldiers and I would ask my parents, well, what does the Army do about thou shalt not kill? What does the Army do to the soldiers? You know, and then it took me going into the military. When I went out, first day I went out on the firing range, it dawned on me that there is no answer. There is no answer for that question.
And that probably, I'm sure that drives a conflict. And now you got this conflict, this confluence of conflicts that you're dealing with because you've been raised not to kill. And the military tells you to do the exact opposite thing that you've been trained not to do: kill, fight, destroy. But man, the thing is, man, and I'm gonna just say this, man, to you and all the other military veterans, I'm glad you guys are on that wall. You know, I'm glad. I don't think the average citizen truly appreciates just how hostile and dangerous this world we live in truly is. I don't think they realize
if people around the world were not as afraid of us as they are, given all our riches and wealth, they would come for us. But because they know we have the best military in the entire world that has ever existed, they don't try it. What happens to the rich kid in the neighborhood? He gets his shoes taken and gets beat up. They don't come for us like that. They don't come for us because of the Army. They don't the Marine Corps, the Air Force, the Navy, the National Guard. They don't come for us, and I don't think people realize that. See, the thing is, Devin, and you can follow up with this because you and Malika are my unofficial assistant co-hosts. I don't think they realize that sometimes you just have to set your mark and do what's in your own best interest, and it doesn't matter what other people think. I don't care that America is not the good guy in everybody's eyes.
Right.
As long as when I lay my head down at night, I don't have to worry about some invading army coming in here or dropping bombs on us because they think we're not going to do anything about it. You guys remember that the next time you say, oh, we should be over there fighting. No, sometimes you just got to set your mark and let people know I'm not the one. I'm not the one to mess with. And that's what America's done. And that's why we've been on top for the last 100 years. Who do they call when they get in trouble? These same Europeans. Who do they call when they get in trouble? They call us. World War I, World War II. We would be fine over here. They call us to come help them fight their wars. Who do they call? But either way, maybe, I know this is shocking to hear from me, right? Because I know, Dennis is love you. But I understand as a man, as a father. But maybe I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? If you want to finish up, I want to put them in the mindset of a person who says, I got to kill for my country. I got to do what I got to do. Go ahead, brother.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. I think, this is a day right now, especially with the Black manosphere. This is a day dawning of the Black man. I really believe it is. And part of that is us owning our patriotism, owning our position in this country as men, and the fact that we are the creators of our society. We are the defenders of our people. We are the defenders of our borders. We're also the protectors of our women, and we're also the defenders of our neighborhoods, keeping the thugs at bay. Those thugs are our responsibility, even though we didn't put them there. And and that's all I gotta say, man. I mean, I'm really glad you touching on this because this is a very, very important thing for the young brothers to understand and appreciate. Like I said, this is our country. We built this country. We fought for this country in every single war. And if you look at the stats, right, if you look at, like I said, we should be 9%, or at the most, really 8 or 7 or 8%. Yeah. And we turn out to be 40% of the wars. So basically, all of the wars that were won, and that was all of them. Right. We won them for you.
Right.
We won them for you.
We
were represented disproportionately.
Let me say it like this. The Italians can't say that. The Irish can't say that. Who else can't say? What other minority groups? The Indians from India can't say that. Nope. The Native Americans can't say that. The Mexicans, other Hispanics, they can't say that. All the Asians can't say that. Arabs, Black men can say. Black men can say we are the reason why this country still stands. Because we make up the percentage of what? The bulk of this military. We might be the minority, but I can't tell in the military. See, this is what they got to understand. We as Black American men, we hold that special place. Without Black American men, we wouldn't have won the Civil War. We definitely wouldn't have won the Revolutionary War. We wouldn't have won the War of 1812. We wouldn't have been able to overcome the Nazis in World War II. And we damn sure wouldn't have stood a chance in Vietnam, even though we got sent back because they held the brothers back in Vietnam. But just think about that. Korean War II, we were there. We were there. So you guys embrace, man, your ownership, man. I tell these brothers all the time, and they think I'm crazy when I tell them, this world belongs to you. And this world belongs to whoever's strong enough to take it and hold on to it. And America is a prime example of that. And they wouldn't be able to hold on to what they have if it wasn't for help. We even helped fight the Indians. In the West.
Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, man, thank you so much. I appreciate you. Always good having you. Thanks for these late nights. I had to
take my kids to martial arts practice. So I'm getting started a little late. But, man, if you guys appreciate what I'm doing, man, hit the number 1 button. That's the main thing, man. Hit the number 1 button. Hit the number 1 button for all the black men who have served in the United States military. They might not be war heroes. They might not have won the Medal of Honor. But let's hit the number 1 button for all the black veterans. Hit the number 1 button for all the black men who are active duty in all the different military branches. If you are in a military, if you've been in the military, just put where you've been: Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, I don't know, Coast Guard, Lifeguard,
Yes.
Space Force. Go ahead and put it in there, man, and give a shout out to all these veterans who are here in the chat room and for those of you guys who live. I want you brothers to really think about this. And we had a brother on here the other day. Last week, we was talking about military stuff, and he was saying, we just called him Sergeant. He was talking about different stuff, slow talking, brother. You know, like coming to find out, like, dude, Master Sergeant, you've been in the military 20. That's what you should have led off with, man. But like he said, and I'm gonna say what he said. He said, you know, if you ain't got nothing else going on, join the military. Think about it. He said, you're not going to college, you don't have a job, go ahead, join the military. And why is that? It doesn't matter if you agree with the politics or not, they're going to teach you, they're going to harness that warrior that's in with you.
That's right.
And you can take that warrior that you have is going to transcend military, life. You take that warrior attitude with you everywhere you go. You learn how to be a follower and you learn how to be a leader. You see what I'm saying? You learn how to follow strong men and lead. That's what be a strong man as a leader. We need that in the black community. Man.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We need that. A lot of you, join the military. I don't want to do that. I don't know, the white man's army. This has always been the black man's army. Name it. And this is another subject. People say this is a white man's country. Name at what point were there no minorities in this country? At what point were there no black men in this country? No brown men in this country.
There were black people on the Mayflower, man.
Right. But here's the crazy thing. The Native Americans were here, and they was black and brown as hell. Then the black folks came over. At what point was this a white man's country? This has never been a white man's country, and they've always utilized us to help fight them wars. So what does that tell you? It tells you that this has always been the black man's country. Yes, we share it with other people, but this has always been your property. Anything you fight for and you hold on to, that's yours. That's what I tell you guys all the time. You don't listen. They hear me, but they don't listen. What do I tell you guys? I tell you brothers all the time. The world belongs to whoever's strong enough to hold on the world belongs to whoever's strong enough to take it and hold on to it. You help take it and you help hold on to it. This is yours. And you embrace that. And you don't let people punk you out of what's yours. You got ancestors that fought and died for this country. This is yours. It's one thing, y'all was just slaves. No, okay? At the same time we was in shackles, we were also holding rifles and swords and handguns and cannons and stuff and being sailors on ships. This is what they have to remember, brothers. I want you brothers to be prideful of what your ancestors did, what your African-American ancestors did. But anyway, man, Devin, what else would you like to say, brother? And then we're going to let these folks go for the night.
Brother, I really appreciate the opportunity, man. If I can make just one humble plug for the Black American Party, we are ready to put together a group of masculine brothers that are trying to reestablish dignity to the Black American family. So please visit blackAmericanParty.com and join us. We're a private social network, and we have a job board and as well as a business directory. So we're trying to help recirculate Black dollars by getting all of the brothers. And I'd like to extend a free membership to yourself, brother. So that you can list your legal services. And, every time I spend money, I want to go to the blackAmericanParty.com, blackAmericanParty.com website and find a brother or a sister that I can spend the money for anything that I need. Cool. And we're also providing opportunities on the website for brothers to give classes where you can actually charge for the classes and get paid through the website as well. Okay. So please visit blackAmericanParty.com. And and write us at info@blackAmericanParty.com with any suggestions for improvement.
That's easy to remember, man. Well, thank you so much, Devin. I appreciate it. We've been going for about an hour and 51 minutes. I think it's worthwhile. This has been a great show. Again, we want to acknowledge these veterans, these war heroes, these Vietnam era war heroes. Remember, they came home and they weren't treated the way they should have been treated.
That's right.
They were not given the parades that folks that in World War II received. Sergeant Dwight Johnson, also known as 50 Cal Hal, Private First Class Langhorne, who jumped on the grenade, and also Sergeant First Class Matthew Leonard from Alabama. Remember what he did? He fought, got shot, rushed a machine gun nest, got shot, fell against a tree, propped himself up against a tree and kept shooting. And of course, Donald Russell Long, who's a sergeant, but sacrificed himself for his soldiers. That's great leadership. This is great sacrifice. This is what I want you guys to remember, man. Remember this when we talk about black men from the 1970s and 60s. Remember them when you talk about the baby boomers. This is what they sacrificed. They just went as unsung heroes, but it's time we commemorate them and we appreciate what these black men done. More important, you incorporate parts of who they are into your own self. You begin to build your character based on what you know is your history. Let this be the history that you dwell on. Let this be the history that you bring up when you talk about black men and greatness. This is what I want you guys to do, man. Embrace that warrior culture. Embrace that warrior within you. Look at Johnson. Look at Dwight Hal. What do we call him? 50 Cal Hal. He got drafted into it. He had no plans. He was chilling in Detroit, minding his own business. He got drafted into the military. And then what happened? The warrior came out. He didn't plan on it. And so what I want you brothers to do is allow that warrior in you to come out. Be warriors. Be warrior. You don't need to be a player. You don't need to be a simp. Be a warrior. Embrace that. Remember their names. These names scrolling along the bottom of this screen. Take part of their story with you. These are your brothers. These are your relatives. We are damn near all of us are related. Whatever you're light skin, dark skin, if you're a black American, we are damn near related because we all came from the same plantations in Baltimore, in Maryland, in Virginia, and South Carolina. We are all the same people. We all related through somebody. We went from 400 or 300,000 to 4 million in close proximity to each other. We are all related, so you can embrace these as your brother. That's why we refer to each other as brother. These black American men are your brothers. And so this is your heritage. This is your legacy. Embrace it. Do the same thing Hispanic people do and white people do and Asian people do. They embrace their heritage. They embrace their heroes. You speak about it. You tell people about all the heroes. You bring up these names: 50 Cal Hal, Private Langhorne, Sergeant Matthew Leonard from Alabama, Sergeant Long. You bring their names up. You talk about them. Don't forget their names. Acknowledge them. And ask them, or really should I say, appreciate them for their sacrifice. And that's what we're here to do, man. But either way, man, God bless you all. I appreciate this conversation. I know it was only supposed to last an hour. It was gone to an hour and 54 minutes, but that's okay. I think every moment is worth it, and it's about time. But other than that, man, I appreciate you guys. This is Uncle D. I'm out.